Well, it's being characterized as the biggest land development in MLB history. How about this? Portland possibly purchasing the red-tailed golf course in what's going to be a massive amount of land, over 150 acres to be exact. It's around a $50 million purchase. Now, this is interesting timing considering the heavy dialogue we've been seeing with Salt Lake City and South Jordan, Utah, possibly hosting the Oakland Athletics for 3 years. Maybe a preview of the city getting an MLB team, and also the dialogue surrounding Utah and NHL. Now Portland striking back, because remember, when you look at the expansion ecosystem right now, we are expecting Nashville to be one of the cities. If it's not going to be Nashville, it's probably going to be Charlotte. So then what does MLB do? Do they go out west? If they go out west, you have two top options. You have Portland or you have Salt Lake City, and recently it seems like Utah has kind of taken over. So maybe Portland can get some of the momentum back. It's in the news. See media coverage of Portland Diamond Project's plans to acquire the 164-acre Redtail Golf Course to create the largest sports and entertainment district in the history of Major League Baseball. Wow. So Portland is coming in hot here. They're probably pissed off at what's going on with Utah. They're coming back and they're saying, we want to create a massive MLB stadium district. We saw the renderings. I believe that was a different area though, but the renderings of the previous stadium, you can see the retractable roof ballpark right there. That looks like only about a 30,000 seat stadium going around with a very small upper deck. But the initial renderings were released with the gondola. Remember those? And then they did do another release back, I want to say towards the end of the summer, with a built-up district. It was like a vertical stadium district with a bunch of apartments surrounding it that would overlook the stadium. So they're really trying to go with the stadium district, and they're putting their money where their mouth is here with possibly a $50 million purchase. Now, this doesn't mean much of anything in terms of them actually getting a team. I mean, I guess it helps a little bit, but, you know, these type of purchases, just to give you some, context, we saw the Chicago Bears purchase around $200 million worth of land in Arlington Heights, and because of a tax issue, they might not even build a stadium in Arlington Heights. So that's a team that already exists, the Bears, purchasing $200 million worth of land and maybe not even building it there. So the idea that they're just going to purchase all this land and immediately get an MLB team, that's really not how it works, but this does help them in terms of their pitch, because MLB, the way they're going with all of these teams getting stadium districts, I'm sure Utah would as well. Utah's renderings are still extremely preliminary. Portland seemed to be a lot more developed, and I know they were talking about possibly a mall location, like an old mall in Portland, Oregon, but this is a new site, and they're looking at the Redtail Golf Course and the massive amount of acres surrounding it, and possibly the biggest land development that is, after careful consideration of many other Portland metro area properties. We've decided that the scale, the timing, the availability, and the opportunity that this site possesses simply could not be a better fit for our project, according to the founder and president of the Portland Diamond Project. Quote, "We think this site not only will put us in the best position to acquire an MLB team, but will afford the Portland metro area the chance to build something truly transformative, a game changer economically and socially." Oh, you know what? The renderings that I remember, the carousel, what a weird, why even include a carousel in a rendering with a baseball stadium? And the carousel had like grass on top of it. One of the stranger renderings I've seen when it comes to an MLB stadium district. But yeah, Portland's obsessed with the stadium district. It's an interesting ploy. It's an interesting move. And you can see their president coming out and saying, look, we're really trying to get on to MLB's good graces here, put us in position to acquire a team, and say, we're going to have the biggest stadium district, bigger than Utah's. Utah's situation, the stadium would be located in the power district in between the airport and Salt Lake City. At least that's the initial location they've been talking about. Now, they could change theirs as well. Does this possibly work out to where Portland gets an MLB team and Salt Lake City gets an NHL team? Personally, I don't think so. I do not think Portland is going to be getting an MLB team. It just doesn't make sense in terms of market size. And, you know, you don't want to talk about the crime with Portland too much because all the major cities have crime, but I mean, look at Chicago. They've got horrible crime, and they're possibly building a new big-time stadium with a district there. With a lot of these bigger cities, you know, the crime can be bad, but there's still really good pockets of the cities. You could visit one of these bigger cities and not run into any of it, or you could run into a lot of it. It just depends on where you go. And I'm guessing this is a very good spot in terms of where they're going to be putting the stadium strategically in Portland if this were to happen, to kind of stay away from the crime-ridden areas of downtown Portland. But either way, this is big news for sure. The timing is curious considering all of the positive momentum we've seen with Utah. Again, Utah, it's not just MLB. It's also NHL, which would scare me a little bit if I was an MLB fan in Utah and not an NHL fan, because Utah could say, oh, we just want to compromise, we just want one pro sports team, and theoretically it would be a lot easier for Utah, just the way everything is configured right now, because they have the Jazz and they're playing at an older arena, for Utah to get an NHL team, build a brand new state-of-the-art arena, and you've got the new expansion NHL team, or you've got a relocated Arizona Coyote team, and then you can also have, kind of as a multi-purpose, have the Utah Jazz play in that brand new arena as well, so it would be utilized significantly. It would be a great investment, as opposed to if you're building an MLB stadium, obviously the only thing it's going to do is host Major League Baseball. That is just the situation in terms of that. So Portland trying to come back, trying to, you know, the way they're, you know, saying this, the biggest land development, you can tell they're really trying to make it grandiose and catch everyone's attention. I mean, I don't hate it. You know, 164 acre, it is a massive area. Not that it's really gonna, I mean, it'd be one thing if they, like, showed a crazy stadium rendering. That would really get my attention. Like, oh, we're gonna build the first translucent color changing roof stadium or something. You know, that would be kind of cool with, like, windows and stuff. I don't know. But, you know, this is kind of, it's just more of a district thing. It's not much to do about the stadium itself. I do wonder if they would stick with those renderings, or I'm guessing if it's 164 acres, those renderings would get thrown out, because the renderings with the apartments, that's a vertical stadium district. This was the argument with the Kansas City Royals. They had two different designs, and the one stadium district was horizontal, meaning it covered more area, and the other district was vertical, meaning it was like high-rise buildings, things like that. This would, for sure, you would expect to be horizontal. I mean, they still might build buildings over, you know, a stadium. The one thing I will say, when you look at that design, I'm waiting for a team to actually do that, because I've seen it a few different times where these teams will, like, have renderings with a bunch of apartments overlooking an MLB stadium, and it never happens. Or maybe that's just kind of a recent thing that I've seen, but they have aggressive, like, 6 different apartment complexes overlooking, where they all have views, pretty good views of the field. And it's like, with the rise of stadium districts, are we going to see more and more of this, to where this becomes like a community thing, and you can get an apartment, you can get a hotel room right overlooking the field, not like the Rogers Center where it's attached to it, but just in general. So that's another thing that I'm watching in terms of just the trend with all these stadium districts. So, you know, Utah comes out, they have all this momentum, and now Portland says this is the biggest land development in MLB history, at least for the time being. I'm sure as stadium districts continue to develop, we might get a bigger one. But yeah, 164 acres. Just to be clear, the renderings that I was showing, that was the Lloyd Center Mall. That was one of the options they could have possibly gone with. But again, that doesn't seem like the option they are going with. Another thing to take into account when it comes to any of these Portland renderings we've seen, they've all included some type of see-through translucent retractable roof, which is a really interesting design that we haven't seen yet in MLB. So I wonder if, when they release newer renderings at this potential new site, which I don't believe there's been any renderings on that, I would imagine they're going to keep the stadium relatively the same. It's, you know, the design looks like around 30,000 total seats. It's smaller, it's compact. But it is kind of unique, some of the outfield areas. But either way, this is a big move by Portland. We'll see what ends up happening. That is going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on X. Link to that's always in the description.